Good morning everybody and welcome to this week's video. I'm really chuffed this week because I've had a niger seed feeder out in the garden for probably about 6 weeks now, and this is the first day I've had goldfinches actually coming down to it. It's been really tough to get them to come down this year. But what I thought this week for a video, what I would do is show you how to, when you've got birds coming down to your feeder, and in this specific case goldfinches coming to a niger seed feeder, what do you do to take your shot from that initial shot with the birds on the feeder to something a little bit special. Now for me the classic goldfinch shot is the goldfinch on the top of a teasel. You see them often in the wild like that when they're feeding, but to get that shot is often quite difficult. And here what I'm hoping to do is show you how to set up that shot in under an hour so that you can, in your own garden, get goldfinches coming to a feeder and take it from that literally in under an hour to a classic goldfinch on teasel shot. So stick with me this morning and I'll show you how to set up. Right, so first thing to look at is your feeders. Now I've got a simple pole type feeder here. I've got a tray down here with some normal bird food in for the sparrows and everything else that comes along. Here's my niger seed feeder. As I say, that's been up for about 6 weeks and they've only just started using it. I don't use one of the really long ones because what I find is the longer the feeder is, the more perches it gives the birds to sit on. So if you're trying to move them away from the feeder, if you've got a really long feeder that's got 10 perches on it and you've got 10 goldfinches coming, they're all going to sit on a perch and they're all going to be quite happy feeding there. What you'll also notice from this is that when I'm doing my photography, what I tend to do is let the seed run down. So I haven't filled it up this morning. That's specifically so there's only these 2 perches here that they can sit on and get some food. If they sit up here, they won't get anything because the seed's too low. Obviously, when I'm finished doing my photography session, I'll fill this up to the top. Right, I'm going to talk about hides a little bit, although to be honest, hides aren't really that important. I've got my little chair hide out here. That's simply because if you remember from some of my earlier videos, I used to have a little metal shed here that I would often use as a hide when I was doing bird photography, but that's since gone. So now I've got nothing here to use, so I'm using this hide. But if you look just behind me here, there's the garage. If need be, I could just open that garage door all the way out and put some scrim netting down there and use that. So what I'm saying is you don't have to have a hide, you know, don't switch off the video now thinking, oh, that's it, I haven't got a hide, I can't do it. You use whatever you've got and you can use whatever you want as a hide, as long as the birds get used to it and you can got enough room to get in it and put your camera lens out. The birds, after a couple of weeks of it being there, will just get used to it. So a hide is anything really that can keep you covered and so the birds don't know you're there. Right, so the positioning of your perch. Now as you can see here, this is my teasel and hopefully you can see the niger seed feeders up here. The hide is in that direction. So it's really important that you set this up correctly, because if you get this wrong, you could end up with the birds, even though they're perching on top of the teasel, you could end up with a back end shot and I'll just swing this round because this moves. If I put that there, then any bird that lands on here will be looking in that direction. So I'm not necessarily going to get the shot that I want. What I want is the seed feeder slightly in front of where the teasel is, so that when the bird lands on it, it's looking at where it wants to go. And how I try and think of it is, especially in today's current climate, so if you imagine if you're wanting to go into a shop and they only allow 2 people in the shop, you wouldn't queue 3/4 of a mile down the road. You'd queue on that position just outside the shop so that you can get straight in next when that position becomes available. And it's very much the same with birds when they're wanting to get on this feeder. They want to get on this feeder next, so they're not gonna, what they're gonna look for is the perch that is closest to it, where they're not going to get into a conflict with anybody. So normally between 12 and 18 inches away from the feeder I find works pretty well. And in a position, so you just position this for the type of shot that you're looking for. So I'm looking for something sort of either looking straight ahead or straight up, because this is low down, and that's the shot I'm looking for. If I wanted something else, if I wanted it higher up so that it was looking more directly across, that's the position I would put this in. And really this teasel, it's just attached to a metal pole that I've put in the ground, so it's nice and sturdy, and that means that the goldfinch can land straight on top of this. So yeah, all important that you get this position right, so that your shot when you take it is the shot that you're looking for, and you know, it's not skewed by the positioning. Right, when you're doing this, you should never forget your background. So I hope you can see from this, I'm a good, let's measure it out. So 1, 2, 3. I'm a good 4 meters there away from my background. Now that's all important really, because as we know, the depth of field of your shot will affect how nicely blurred your background is. So for my camera lens setup at the minute, I'm shooting at f7.1 because I find that that's really sharp for that lens. I could shoot at f6.3, and what I'm looking for is that background of those bushes there to be really blurred, so that you can't tell. It's just a mishmash of pastel-y colours, if you like, behind the bird. Because obviously anything, if I'd got a hedge here about 18 inches behind, at f7.1 you would see every branch in that hedge, and it just detracts from the bird. So really be careful with your background. And the thing about this is, you don't have to do this on the day. You can set all this up 2, 3 days, 3 weeks before. Take some test shots of your teasel and just see what the background looks like. And also, if there's anything, you know, I could have something in the background there, even though it's a long way away. If I've got a colour, so I don't know whether you'll notice, you might not be able to see it on here, but I've got, just peeking over the top of that hedge is one of my neighbour's white double glazed windows. Now, if I get that in the shot, that can be very distracting in the shot, because it's not, you know, I've got a nice green and then I've got a really bright section which will really blow out in the background, and again detract from my main subject here. So all this, although it sounds quite complicated, is quite easy really, and something that just take test shots and make sure that the background is exactly as you want it, and then, you know, that shot will be a piece of cake. Right, so once you've been taking some shots successfully with this teasel here, you might think, well, how can I change my shot a little bit? You know, I've done everything that I can. Well, this works really well actually if you've got a distraction in the background. If you've got something like scrim netting, you can just hang it up behind, like so. It doesn't even have to cover a big area if you think about it. It's only got to cover that small area behind the bird, enough for your little bit of a background on your shot. Works really well if you've got a distraction. But what you can also do is, if you want to change the look of the shot, so you want a different coloured background, you can just throw an old sheet, any colour, you know, try different colours. You can actually get different background sheeting that works really well as well, that a lot of people use in studios. But you know, any old material, anything like that, if you want to change the colour, because at the right distance, as we talked about earlier, if you're 3, 4 meters behind, you won't be able to tell what that is. It'll just give you a nice colour and a different feel to your shot. Right, I hope you've enjoyed this week's video. I hope that's given you some tips for a project that you can do throughout the winter actually, and it's really enjoyable. You can change it up and down, change the different perches, and do it for different birds as well. So I hope that's been useful to you. I'd really like it if anybody takes any images after using this method. You can always post them to Scott Tilley Photography, which is my Facebook photography group. If you look up Scott Tilley Photography on Facebook, and ask to join the group, I'll join you into the group there, and then you can just post your image. It's a really friendly group. People post all sorts of images, not just wildlife. They do landscapes and you know, portraits, as well as street photography. There's all sorts on there, and it's a really friendly group. So anybody who wants to join that, yeah, I'll put a link in the description as well. Anyway, that's me done for this week. I'm going to get back in the hide now, because You can't see what I can see at the minute, but I've got goldfinches all over my feeder at the minute, which is currently 8 meters away. I'm not in the hide. My camera's in the hide over there. After the struggles I've had for the last 6 weeks getting them to come down, and I can actually sit on my patio now and have them in front of me. Yeah, it's really nice, but it would have been nice if that had happened earlier. Anyway, I hope you have some good luck with this, and as I say, post those images on that group for me, it would be great, and let me know that that's how you've had success with it. I'll see you next week for another video. Bye.